Today's something of an auspicious day here at Garden Grown Groceries. We're planting out the rest of our vegetables that we had growing indoors. All the seedlings now are going to be outgrowing outside. Well, not necessarily into the garden. We'll be transplanting some up, but we'll be hardening them off to put them out. But everything is out of the greenhouse, out of the grow room. So let's get to it. So I just wanted to show that while I was getting ready to plant some new potatoes that I got growing. And by the way, these are what my potato plants typically look like when I plant them and they're ready to be planted. This was the bucket for the Sharp Mirror that didn't sprout, but I found the seed potatoes in there and they're actually still fine. The potato itself is still solid. There was actually a second one in there too, and it's still in good condition. So I'm going to end up planting those potatoes again, and maybe we'll end up getting potatoes out of them. So they actually hadn't died and failed as I thought, but I'm going to plant a couple of these potatoes in the bucket that I was growing those Sharp Mirrors in. So I'm going to plant my eggplant now. I've got these nursery plant containers. They're 3 gallons. I think that should be enough for eggplants to grow in. I guess we'll find out. I'm filling up the container about halfway. Did I say eggplant? I actually meant zucchini. So I'm going to be taking this plant here and this one back here and planting them. It's not a bad root system in here. It's been growing. I'm just going to place it right in the middle here and just start scooping in some soil around it. Won't be able to do this with one hand because I'm going to need to hold the plant up like this. So I'll be back in a second. I've mentioned previously that I've had good success growing at least crookneck squash inside these tomato cages. But because this cage doesn't go down far enough to give the plant support as it's growing up, what I'm going to do first is add a bamboo pole, and I'm going to put it right next to the plant and put that in. And you want to do it early so you're not damaging any roots if you waited until it grew a little bit taller. And then as it puts on a little more size, I can use some garden twine and just lightly attach it to this post until it gets big enough where it'll be supported by the tomato cage. I'm going to put the tomato cage on now too, though. And here too, you want to make sure that you put it in soon enough so that you don't disturb or damage roots as it's growing. As I said, when this gets a little more size onto it and the vine starts to come out, I'll just tie it up loosely onto the pole until the leaves can reach this rung, and then it'll support itself as it grows up. We'll see if it does as well with zucchini as it did with the crookneck squash. So we got both zucchini planted into the buckets, and as you can see, I've put some shredded hay around both plants to help conserve water and regulate the soil temperature. Now they're ready to go out into the garden, which is actually going to be right there and right there. So just as I did with the zucchini, I'm going to do with the eggplant, and I'm going to carefully tease them apart. Dig a little hole here and stick this one in. Firm it in. And now fill in around it. Now eggplants have a much more upright growth habit than zucchini does. So I'm not going to put a bamboo stake in here. I'm just going to put the tomato cage in, and I'll top it off with the hay afterwards. And the eggplant is done as well. And this will be placed in a different part of the garden. Not quite sure, looking for the sunniest spot for them. Although this is pretty good too. So maybe just on this side and that side. Or I can move the zucchini over here, have the two zucchinis next to each other, and then have the two eggplants there. That makes sense. So I filled up the trays, the individual cups, with potting soil. And this is the homemade potting soil. And I'm going to take the tomatoes, pick them out, and stick one to a cup, and then begin hardening them off outside. It's a very simple process. It's going to be using a typical skewer. So I'm going to pop out a cell of tomatoes. Hopefully the rest don't come out with it. Tomatoes are a hardy plant. Interestingly, they were growing around just at this level and not going down through the soil. So just going to gently tease them apart if I can. Trying carefully not to damage them too much. Just gently, and you can get them apart. So now we're going to take the skewer and just make a hole in the soil, a deep one, and pop this in as far as we can get it. Again, you don't want to break the roots as much as possible, but then just firm it up. So we'll do the next one, but this one's got a very good root system on it. Again, just make a hole. And once again, we got the two tomatoes growing together here. So we'll try to gently tease them apart. And there we go. In the deep hole. Bearing the first set of leaves. It's not a big deal. Okay. And now the tomatoes will get watered in. And as I said, we're going to set them out to begin the hardening off process. So the tomatoes are transplanted. I got 26 Roma plants, 4 cherries. Only need 2 of them, but we'll keep the extra 2 just in case something happens to the first 2. And definitely don't need this many Romas, only about half of them, but I'll keep them for the same reasons, and if necessary I'll pot them up into a bigger pot as time goes on. But we've got the tomatoes potted up, and as I said, I'm going to begin the process now of hardening them off and keeping them outside. So now I'm going to do the same thing with my peppers. I'm going to pot them up into individual containers. Fortunately, most of these are individual plants in here, but just as before, just going to pop them out and pop them in. And now I can pop this into and firm it in, just as with the tomatoes. The same again. Take the you can feel the stems are a lot firmer on the peppers than they were on the tomatoes, so it helps them maneuvering them around the roots. Don't worry about trying to spread out the roots or anything. You can mash them all down into the hole and it's not going to affect the plant. So I'll finish up the rest of these and be back. All right, the peppers are done. And unfortunately, I had California Wonders and Grand Bell peppers and wasn't even thinking about which was which, so I don't remember. They're going to be pretty similar anyway. They're all bell peppers. So we've got the tomatoes and the peppers done, and now in a couple of weeks we'll end up transplanting them into the garden, but this will give them a chance to spread their roots, and we will plant the entire soil block there into the garden when we plant them out. At the start I said everything is going outside right now. Well, that's not exactly true. We still have the sweet potato slips under grow lights and growing more still. But all the other vegetables, every single vegetable that we have now has been transplanted from its original seedling tray out into the garden. So that's something of a good feeling that we're set to go now for the next stage of the garden, which is basically growing and waiting for that harvest to come. But if you want to see what we were doing in the garden last week, check out this video right here, and then subscribe and hit that notification bell. And that way you can stay up to date on the progress on all of our vegetables as we try to grow a supermarket in our own backyard. Okay, thanks for watching.